When I first started miniature painting, like many beginners, I really wasn't sure how to use a wash. I would often paint my mini like normal and then just completely soak it. Where I went wrong was not continuing past that step with the trick I'm going to teach you in today's video. So my old method would look good in some areas, and certainly added some detail and depth to the minis. But it also made everything a bit murky or dirty. Everything I painted was now a shade darker. This could be the look you're going for, especially if you want that grim dark aesthetic from Warhammer 40k. But maybe that's not what you want though. Maybe you want your white cloaks to look as white without looking like they're caked in oil. Maybe you want your red shoulder pauldrons to be a nice bright red without looking like they're covered in a layer of mud. As a beginner, the mistake you might be making is stopping after coating your mini in a wash. Today, I'm going to explain what a wash is, how they work, and my favorite trick for easily applying a wash that might save you a ton of time painting your minis. As a beginner, you might not know how to use a wash. In fact, you might even be asking yourself right now, what is a wash? Sometimes called liquid talent or magic in a bottle, a wash is basically a super thin down paint, often used for adding shadows and weathering to a paint job quickly and easily. Washes are so thin down that their consistency isn't too far off from water. This also means that they are mostly transparent and function by tinting or dyeing the paint colors underneath. If you've ever made Easter eggs, it's kind of like adding some food dye to the hot water and then dipping your eggs in to dye them. It's usually a very saturated color, but still watery. Most miniature painting brands make many shades or colors of washes. You can also get washes from other paint companies that don't make paints designed for miniatures, or even make your own by mixing a lot of water with some of your acrylic paints, or by using a thinning medium. Washes are almost always used by brushing them over top of other paints and colors. It seeps into cracks and recesses since it's such a low viscosity. It's often used to very quickly add some weathering or to make certain details pop. However, washes tend to darken the color underneath, tinting or dyeing it to whatever shade your wash is. It can also make your colors look very murky, muddy, or dirty, which isn't always what you want. But we can fix this, and in today's example, I'm going to let our wash do about 75% of the work for me. And then we're going to take things a huge step further after the wash to make this mini really stand out. Today, I'm going to be painting this 3D printed snowtrooper from Darkfire Designs, scaled for Star Wars Legion. Snowtroopers have white armor and clothing, but in pretty much all of their media depictions, it isn't pure white. Compare them to their Stormtrooper counterparts, who are often shown with shiny white armor, only really looking dirty on desert planets like Tatooine. Snowtroopers just look a little dirtier, even in the snows of Hoth. So we need to dirty up this very clean looking snowtrooper. Enter Army Painter Soft Tone Wash. This wash is softer or lighter than many of my other washes, and I think it'll get me really close to the shade I want. Sometimes to figure this out though, we just have to give it a try on our minis and see how it looks. I wasn't actually sure how this was going to turn out until I actually started painting. I had a pretty good idea I was going to like it just from experience, but sometimes I just wing it and hope for the best. If you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button down below. I'm going to coat the entire snowtrooper here, trying not to get too much on the snow-covered base. I really want it to seep into those cracks and crevices, and you can really see how it pulls up near the edges of shapes instead of coating everything in a solid light brown color. You can still see the white through the wash in most places, but as you can see, it's been tinted and looks much darker and dirtier than when we started. We're gonna let the wash dry for a bit before we paint anything else. Next, I'm gonna go through and add some of our other details using some other colors. Red for some little buttons on his chest and backpack. Gray for some of those inset details on his backpack. And black for his weapon and eye lenses. As you can see here, the Snowtrooper looks pretty good, but he's a little bit too dirty in my opinion. So what's the trick that's gonna help us here? After the wash, we come back with our base color or our highlight color and we paint over it. I know that sounds pretty obvious, but when I first started, this never even occurred to me. I saw the wash as one of the final steps. But if you keep going and push it a little bit further, we can drastically improve the look of this Mini. The wash has helped us add some contrast and shadows to the Mini, but we need to go back and add our highlights. Since his armor and clothing are supposed to read as white, I'm gonna take my Army Painter Matte White, short for Matthew White, and thin this down quite a bit. I want this to be fairly thin, but not runny. Now I'm going back over the Mini and hitting all of the raised edges. Every bit of armor facing upwards, all the folds and raised parts of the cloth get painted with some white. The top of his helmet is definitely going to be catching the light, so it needs some white to bring those highlights back. Same for his shoulder pauldrons and the top of his backpack. Some of the areas like his knees are also hard armor parts that tend to reflect light pretty well. So we need to make sure we add some highlights there as well. And there we have it. The Snowtrooper is done. And we let the wash do a lot of the work for us in this case. Let's look at him side by side for a before and after. What do you think? Was this worth the extra time we spent on him? I think so. This trick will work for pretty much any miniature, because anytime we use a wash, we're going to be darkening things down. Even if we use it in very targeted areas, instead of coating the entire miniature like we did here today. Bringing those highlights back in will help bump up the contrast and improve the overall look of our minis. If this video helped you out, consider subscribing if you haven't already. And don't forget, you can join the Patreon and vote on upcoming video topics. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to watch another tutorial video, click here.